Hey, thank you, ma'am. And I just want to say good morning to everyone, and let's go ahead and set forth our appearances. We'll start first with the plaintiffs, and we'll move to the defense.
Will Kemp for plaintiff.
Robert Eggert for
plaintiff.
plaintiff, Your Honor. I apologize.
Robert Eggert for plaintiff, Your Honor.
Maggie D. Federico for plaintiff. Brianna Switzer for plaintiff.
Good morning, Your Honor. Eric Peppermint for plaintiff.
And good morning, Your Honor. Tyler Watson, Brad Johnson, Michael Esposito, and Eric Freeman on behalf of the defendants.
All right, once again, good morning. And I think what I'm going to do, we have a jury that's habitually 15 minutes late every time. And I think I'm going to purposefully set the time for 15 minutes before we actually start. In order to...
It's not a bad idea.
That's a good idea, Judge.
This is how it is. I mean, every day... It's not the lawyers, it's not even my cases, it's...
Don't tell her I said this, but that's what I do with my wife.
I understand. And I think that's what we'll do.
It's on the record.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't seem like a secret.
Hope not.
So on the record, Mr. Eggers.
Oh, God.
All right, is there anything we need to address outside the presence?
Not on the defense side, Your Honor.
Okay.
Nothing from plaintiff, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. All right. But that's what I'm going to do. And this morning, will we have more live witnesses, or?
Yes, Your Honor, we're going to call out of order one of the defense expert witnesses.
Okay. All right. Name?
Yes, it's Dr. Howard Robin.
And have the exhibits been admitted already, or?
The only exhibits that'll be in the PowerPoint are admitted already. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. We're ready. All right, do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor. We do, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And we're going to continue with the evidence, and it's my understanding we're going to call one witness outside of order, and what I mean by that is, it's the defense witness. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct, Your Honor. At this time, the defense would call Dr. Howard Robin.
All right.
Come this way, sir. Please watch your step.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. May I have you state and spell your name for the record?
Howard Stephan with a V, Robin, R-O-B-I-N.
Thank you.
Okay, counsel, you may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Dr. Robin.
Good morning.
And good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. So today we're actually calling a witness out of order. The plaintiffs were gracious enough to allow us to call Dr. Robin now to accommodate his work schedule. That's the good news. The bad news is it doesn't mean they're done calling their witnesses. We've still got some road ahead of us, okay? All right. And then the other point I'd like to just clarify for everyone as we get started, you've got Dr. Robin on the stand. Then we've also got Robin, who's going to be helping with the presentation. So try to avoid that confusion. But let's go ahead and get started with the PowerPoint slides if we can. All right. So just to give the jury a little bit of context about who you are, can you explain what it is that you do for a living?
Yeah, I'm an anatomic and clinical pathologist, board certified in anatomic and clinical pathology as well as immunopathology. I went to Penn State and then to Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia, did a rotating internship at Chestnut Hill Hospital, an anatomic and clinical pathology residency at Jefferson, and then came west to do a research fellowship at Scripps Research in La Jolla, California, and received board certification in anatomic and clinical pathology in 1976 and immunopathology in 1983.
Okay, great. And then, Robin, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So can you tell us a little bit more about what that work entails as it relates to your pathological study of the liver?
Yes, so I was always interested in the liver, and that's why I did a research fellowship in molecular immunology, looking at the immune system and how it may injure the liver, and then basically how can we find ways in which to treat injured liver by immunologic processes. But most of my career was in a hospital setting where I was the liver pathologist for a large healthcare system in San Diego. I was the medical director and the chairman of the department, and I looked at all the liver biopsies for 4 acute care hospitals, part of the SHARP network. I was also in charge of the clinical chemistry lab, where we did the laboratory studies, the blood draws, and looked at liver tests and interpreted those for physicians. And I was in charge of the immunology lab, looking at the various immunologic tests that would be performed to better demonstrate or better identify what the causative agent was in individuals who had liver injury. I was also the chairman of the Pharmacy and Therapeutics Committee, and we were involved in looking at adverse drug reactions. And I was the chair of the subcommittee that looked at the patients who came into the emergency room and who were admitted to the hospital because they had an adverse reaction to a drug. So I had a unique opportunity to see the pharmaceutical side, the clinical chemistry side, as well as looking at the liver biopsies. I was also the chairman of the and medical director of continuing medical education for the SHARP Healthcare Network, which was 2,700 physicians.
Excellent. And have you published any books or articles in your area of expertise?
Yes, published the book on the pathology of IV drug abuse and chapters in that regard, as well as articles related to a herbal supplement back in the late 80s that caused lung injury, and then also was involved in identifying the first cases of something called dermatopathic fibrosis due to a chemical that was injected into patients as part of a radiology study.
Okay, excellent. And have you previously testified at trial as an expert?
Yes, I have.
And what areas of expertise did you provide testimony?
In the past, in medical legal cases, I may have testified as to standard of care, but currently, mostly my testimony is on causation. What is the basic cause of someone's injury, and then also testify as to injury. Because I spent 4.5 years at the coroner's office in San Diego, I also testify in criminal defense cases.
Okay. And generally speaking, are all pathologists qualified to review and interpret liver biopsy slides?
Generally speaking, a pathologist should have the training, expertise, and experience to review and to diagnose liver disease. Although there are so many different causes of liver disease, and it's looking at 1/50,000th of the whole liver, so you need lots of experience and special expertise in certain cases.
Okay. Are all pathologists experts in the area of liver pathology?
No.
Okay. What would take someone from being a general pathologist to having a specialized expertise in liver pathology?
I think expertise comes from experience, seeing lots of liver biopsies and having that interaction with the doctors who take care of these patients with liver disease, and then having access to the laboratory side, the clinical chemistry side, as well as the immunology side. Putting it all together, your interaction with your clinical colleagues in charge of the clinical chemistry lab, and also looking at the pathology and understanding the pharmacology and the adverse effects of pharmaceuticals.
Okay. But is there a board certification for having a specialty in liver pathology?
No.
Okay. So the expertise is derived from experience?
Yes.
Okay. And in this matter, you were hired to form opinions as it relates to two of the claimants in this case, Carolyn Strong and Vanya Diaz. Is that true?
Yes.
Great. And now, before we get to these items, what I want to do is have you describe some of the terms and the concepts that we're going to be going over today. For the benefit of the jury, you know, they've already heard a lot of this, so we'll be brief about it, but I think it's important just to get a baseline. Fair?
Sure.
Okay. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. What is a liver biopsy?
Liver biopsy is probably the gold standard for determining what disease a patient has, the diagnosis, what is the prognosis, how bad is the liver injured, and will it get better, and then to determine whether this is a condition that can be treated and what the therapy should be, and that's in conversation or dialogue with the liver specialist or the gastroenterologist.
Okay. In your practice, when you're looking at a patient's liver biopsy slide, would you be considered a treating provider?
No.
Okay. What would your role be when you are a liver pathologist?
So as a liver pathologist, you're a consultant, and by receiving that liver biopsy, the treating physician has ordered a liver biopsy, usually today performed by a radiologist, and the pathologist is asked 3 questions. What's the diagnosis? What's the prognosis? How bad is it? And is there anything that we can do to treat this patient so that they get better?
Thank you. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And this term we've heard a lot about already, but this is the portal tract. Can you explain that?
A portal tract is basically the plumbing of the liver. And the portal tract has 2 blood vessels. One is the artery that brings fresh oxygenated blood to the liver. Liver has 500 different functions, so it needs a very rich blood supply. It also receives blood from the gastrointestinal tract, and that comes from a vein called the portal vein, and it also contains the bile duct. The bile duct brings bile into the gastrointestinal tract. First it's stored in the gallbladder, and then it goes into the GI tract. And the bile is important for absorbing fats as well as vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. And it also carries some of the toxins that the liver is responsible for detoxifying.
And is the portal tract encased in collagen?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what exactly is collagen in the terms of someone's liver?
I was looking for a demonstrative. Collagen is the supporting structure of the body. We have collagen that attaches our muscles to our bones. We have collagen in all of our organs. The collagen is the support structure. If you think of it, when you build a house, you have a framework first, and the framework is collagen. And the collagen is normal in the liver, it's normal in the kidney, it's normal in every organ of the body. Collagen's found in bone, skin, and liver.
Okay. And on a biopsy slide, what color does collagen show up as?
Blue.
Okay. And since we're talking about this issue of portal tracts, I think you have a demonstrative there.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is?
Yes. This is a portal track. Looking at it face on. We call this the cross section, or when you look at it, you see the red, which is the artery, the hepatic artery bringing fresh blood. The blue is the portal vein bringing blood from the gastrointestinal tract. And the green is bile. The blood flows from the portal triad to something called the central vein, whereas bile flows from where the central vein is towards the portal region. This is what happens when you have this is what you see on a cross-section of a liver biopsy. You see these three structures, 2 blood vessels and a bile duct. But sometimes when you cut a liver section, instead of seeing it on cross-end, you see it longitudinally, like this. And so you see the blue, which represents the normal collagen. You see blue representing the portal vein, red representing the hepatic artery, and green representing the bile duct. And so this is what you would see if there was a longitudinal cut of the portal tract.
Now, one point of clarification. In someone's liver, is their portal tract likely to be a perfectly straight line like the exemplars you have up there?
No, when you look at this liver biopsy, these things undulate. And so you may see a bile duct and then it disappears and then it comes up again, and then you see a vein and an artery all undulating. So it's not a nice straight line, but an undulating line.
Okay. And let's go ahead and go to slide 5. And this is just a demonstrative where you can explain, hopefully, a little bit more about the liver's function and ability to regenerate. Can you explain what this image demonstrates?
Yes. May I stand up, Your Honor, and address the jury?
Yes, you may, sir.
We've come a long way in the way in which we look at the liver. We used to think of the liver as a lobule, and so these blue things, structures here, that's the central vein that's taking the blood from the liver and then going back to the heart. In the center here, we have the portal triad, which has the artery, the pulmonary vein, and the bile duct. And we used to talk about a portal lobule, or a hepatic lobule. Now we talk more about a hepatic acidus. And so we have the portal triads as the important features, and then we have the blood going towards the hepatic vein in both directions. And we now look at zones of hepatocytes, zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Zone 1 is closest to the portal tracts, and it has certain functions. And when we look at a liver biopsy, we try to determine which area of the liver is injured. Is it zone 1, zone 2, or zone 3? Most toxins injure zone 3 out here. So you would say, well, what job does zone 2 have? Zone 2 is the reparative zone. If something goes wrong with hepatocytes in zone 1 or zone 3, zone 2 finds ways to make new hepatocytes. The liver has incredible regenerative capacity. And so if hepatocytes are lost, zone 2 steps in and makes new hepatocytes either for zone 1 or zone 3.
All right, thank you, doctor. Let's go ahead and move on to slide 6. What is steatosis?
Steatosis is our pathologic term for fat in liver cells. And the fat in liver cells can occur for a number of different reasons. It's a non-specific non-specific lesion. You can see fat in just about any type of liver injury. The most common form of steatosis in the United States today is associated with obesity, diabetes, and the metabolic syndrome. But we also see fat in the liver when there's a toxin or a drug injury. And what it represents is the buildup of something called triglycerides, which is a type of fat in the liver cell. In non-alcoholic fatty liver disease that's associated with the metabolic syndrome and obesity and diabetes, it's because the fat is stored there and it can't be released because there's insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is what we see with diabetes. In individuals who have a toxic or drug reaction, that is because it's a complicated system, but the mitochondria are injured, and it's called oxidative stress. And when there's oxidative stress, the liver ends up keeping the triglycerides in the cell and doesn't release them. There's other mechanisms as well in terms of the endoplasmic reticulum, et cetera, but this is a finding that we observe in individuals who have a drug or toxic reaction. You also see it in the other common toxin that's consumed, and that's alcohol.
And that kind of goes to my next question. When steatosis is present in the liver, is that a permanent condition?
No.
Okay. Does that change based on an individual's diet day to day?
Yes. So the recommendation for individuals who have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is to reduce the risk by diet, 3 to 5%, and sometimes 7 to 10% reduction in weight, exercise, and changing to a healthy diet, and then of course limiting the amount of alcoholic beverages.
And you've used a couple of terms, and I wonder if there's a distinction. Is there a difference between fatty liver and fatty liver disease?
Yes, so it's a spectrum. It starts off as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and it's associated with obesity and this metabolic syndrome and diabetes. And according to the statistics are amazing that 25% of the US population has this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but only 5% go on and develop what we call non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, or NASH. But both of these are reversible, and they're reversible by diet, nutrition, exercise.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. We've heard a lot about this term, but just quickly, what is fibrosis?
Fibrosis is the laying down of scar tissue. Scar tissue is collagen. As we said before, there's normal collagen in the body, and then when there's injury, when you fall and you cut your lip or cut your chin, you'll form a scar. That scar is made up of collagen. If you looked at it under the microscope, it was blue. It's the normal way in which the body repairs itself.
Okay. And is the presence of fibrosis in a liver universally viewed as harmful?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
The liver has this incredible capacity to repair itself, not only to regenerate, but the liver can make enzymes known as collagenases that actually enzymatically cleave and get rid of the scar tissue.
Okay. So in some circumstances, fibrosis, even if it's present, wouldn't be permanent?
I'm sorry, is not permanent
In some circumstances.
in some circumstances.
Is that correct? Is that a correct statement?
Yes, that is a correct statement.
All right. Let's go to the next slide. This is an issue that we'll be talking about a little bit more during your testimony. What is bridging fibrosis?
Bridging fibrosis is when the scar tissue goes from a portal tract to a portal tract, or from a portal tract to a central vein. In drug and toxin-induced bridging fibrosis, it's usually from a portal tract to a central vein. And so you saw the portal tracts and the central veins. When a lot of the hepatocytes die, something known as massive or submassive hepatic necrosis, there's collapse in the liver, and that collapse is filled in with fibrous tissue. And then in the fibrous tissue, the body tries to repair itself. And so that's a scar that can go from portal tract to portal tract or portal tract to central vein.
So with that exemplar that you have, the demonstrative exhibit that you have in front of you, doctor, bridging fibrosis, if you were to take one of those portal tracts and then hold up the other one, sorry. Yeah, put them together, like sandwich them back together, and then hold the other one up. So if you're pointing those towards the jury, correct? Yeah, point them towards the jury. Would there be, in a pathology slide, if there was bridging fibrosis, blue connecting one to the other? Is that what bridging fibrosis would look like on a...
Right.
Okay. Now go ahead and set down the complete one and pick up just the half. And if you're showing just the half, that would, if you had the longitudinal section, that would also be a line of blue in a pathology slide, correct?
Yes, it would.
Okay. Is it easy to confuse those two circumstances when reviewing a pathology slide?
It happens frequently.
Okay. Because it looks like a line of blue on a slide.
Yes.
Okay. And does bridging fibrosis, is there a number on the fibrosis scale that bridging fibrosis would have assigned to it?
Usually in a scale of 0 to 4, it's usually given a 3.
Okay. And when someone is at a 3 on the fibrosis scale, can the liver heal from that?
Yes.
Okay. Always?
No.
Okay. So it's possible with a 3.
Early, and if you pick it up early and you know what the cause is, then you can potentially reverse it. It's certainly reversible in individuals with NASH or non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. And now that we have new drugs for treating hepatitis C virus infection, bridging fibrosis can be healed and go away.
Okay, great. That is actually a good transition to go to the next one. The jury's well aware of this scale at this point, but since we're just talking about kind of that point where there's a capacity for healing and there's, or kind of the point of no return, am I understanding you correctly that when someone's on a 3, there's a chance for healing, but when they're at a 4, that's permanent?
Yes.
Okay. What about if someone's at a 1 or a 2? What are the possibilities for healing there?
I think they're excellent.
Okay. Can you determine a number on the fibrosis scale without performing a liver biopsy?
There are chemical tests, the Fibro test or the FibroSure, where they look at 6 markers of liver function. And then there's elastography or the FibroScan that looks at the firmness of the liver. But the gold standard is still the liver biopsy because there are issues in terms of sensitivity and specificity. Sensitivity being the ability to detect fibrous structures or cirrhosis, and specificity in that if you do identify something as abnormal, it's not always truly positive, it's a false positive.
And when we're talking about the FibroScan or the elastography,
May we approach? Yes.
and in your practice, I know you said the gold standard is having a liver biopsy, but is it? Do you also rely on FibroScan and elastographies?
Oh, sure, clinicians do, because patients don't like to have someone stick a big needle into their liver.
Makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And here we're going to talk about cirrhosis, that's a number 4 on the scale, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe a little bit more about what this condition is?
So the liver, as we said before, has this incredible regenerative capacity. But if there's real serious injury to the liver, like a lot of the liver has been knocked off either through massive or submassive hepatic necrosis or continuing ongoing liver injury, the liver tries to regenerate and forms regenerative nodules, but those regenerative nodules are associated with fibrosis. So when we look at the liver under the microscope in a needle biopsy, we're looking for both scarring, this bridging fibrosis, as well as regenerative nodules. When you see that, it's cirrhosis.
Okay, perfect. So let's go to the next one since we just started talking about it. Describe in more detail what a regenerative nodule consists of.
A regenerative nodule is a nodule that doesn't look like normal hepatocytes. The liver is attempting to make a nice line of hepatocytes to function like a normal liver column. But with a regenerative nodule, it's rounded and it's not normal, and it doesn't have a really well-defined central vein, and it's you look at it and you see it and you could say, yes, that's a regenerative nodule.
And are regenerative nodules associated with a score on the fibrosis scale?
Usually associated with cirrhosis. It's
Okay.
4.
Okay. So typically, regenerative nodules show up when there's cirrhosis in a liver.
Correct.
Okay, great. Can regenerative nodules appear even if cirrhosis is not present?
Sometimes there's a condition known as fibrous hyperplasia, nodular fibrosis, and hyperplasia of the liver that happens in young women. Yes, so you can have regenerative nodules due to hyperplasia, sometimes associated with birth control pills.
Okay, but what about in circumstances where someone's been introduced to a toxin? If someone has, the drug-induced liver injury from a toxin that's been presented, and there's no cirrhosis, would you expect to see regenerative nodules?
No.
Okay. All right, and since I brought up the term, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. What is a drug-induced liver injury?
This is when a drug, a toxin, or an herbal supplement has the capacity to injure the hepatocytes. As we said, usually in that zone 3 closest to the central vein. And this drug-induced liver injury has an effect on mitochondria, it causes oxidative stress, and it causes damage to the hepatocytes. When there's damage to the hepatocytes, then other cells release hormones, or known as cytokines, that then cause an inflammatory reaction.
Okay. And is a drug-induced liver injury permanent?
No.
Okay. Can a liver fully recover after a drug-induced liver injury?
Yes.
And in your opinion, is hydrazine, that's a toxin that's harmful to the liver, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is hydrazine so toxic that any exposure to it would cause permanent liver damage?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go to our next slide. This one is the acute liver injury. What is that?
Acute liver injury is observed in individuals who have DILI or drug-induced liver injury. These individuals have elevated liver enzymes, the chemistry tests that I was responsible for in the lab. And if you've had blood work recently, and they do a Chem 20 panel, they have 2 enzymes, alkaline phosphatase, 3 enzymes, alkaline phosphatase, alanine aminotransferase, and aspartate aminotransferase. Those are chemicals that are elevated in individuals who have acute liver injury. And they also have symptoms, nausea, vomiting, tired.
Okay. Is an acute liver injury permanent?
No.
All right. Is there any association on the fibrosis scale, any number that you would associate with acute liver injury?
No.
All right. Is it more of a generic term?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, do acute liver injuries turn into or potential to turn into an acute liver failure?
Well, acute liver failure just represents a more severe form of acute liver injury.
So it's progressing on. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about acute liver failure.
Acute liver failure is when more hepatocytes are injured by that drug or that toxin. And so we call that severe when individuals have mental issues associated with it. They're confused, they're tired, they have difficulty remembering names, etc.
Okay.
And it's due to chemical buildup. And then they also have coagulopathy, meaning that because the liver makes the proteins that help our blood clot, when you have acute liver injury that's severe, clotting becomes a problem.
Okay, so an acute liver failure is a more severe form of an acute liver injury, correct?
Yes.
Now, once you get to this point, is that injury permanent?
No.
Okay. Is it necessary to look at someone's INR score to determine whether someone is suffering acute liver failure?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a certain number on the INR score where it would be considered high or elevated?
Greater than 1.3, greater or equal to 1.3.
Okay, so 1.3 or higher is an elevated INR score, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When someone goes over 1.3, does that guarantee that damage has been done to their liver?
Well, damage has been done to their liver. The question is that damage permanent?
Okay. And what's the answer to that question?
No.
Okay. All right. Next, let's go to the 15th slide, please. So talk a little bit about the liver's ability to regenerate.
Remember how important the liver is. As a liver expert, I always think of the liver as being really important. But the liver has these 500 different functions. Therefore, the liver has built in an unbelievable ability to regenerate. I mean, there are mothers that have donated portions of their livers to their children who need a transplant. And you can give up 50, 60, maybe 70% of your liver and still survive because the liver in 6 months will regenerate. So unbelievable regenerative capacity. It happens with individuals who have tumors of their liver, and you remove the tumor and the liver regenerates. And then remember those cells in zone 2, they have regenerative capacity. So as long as the reticulin network, the scaffolding stays intact, those hepatocytes in zone 2 will repopulate injured cells in zone 3 or zone 1.
All right. And with that as background, and I appreciate you walking us through all that, let's go ahead and move on to your opinions in this case. We're going to go ahead and start with Ms. Strong. Did you rely on any medical records as it relates to forming your opinions for Ms. Strong?
Yes, I've relied on the medical records from Las Vegas as well as from the Naval Regional Center in San Diego.
Okay. Did you also look at some biopsy slides?
I looked at the biopsy slide of Mrs. Strong.
Okay. And did you look at some of her written discovery responses as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And for a pathologist, is it typical to review medical records and biopsy slides to form an opinion?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go ahead and get started taking a look at some of her slides. If we could go to number 17. Can you explain to the jury what they're looking at here?
This is a trichrome stain. This is the stain. May I approach the jury again?
That's for the judge to answer. Yeah, all right.
Did he say yes?
No, Your Honor.
So it's a very nice liver biopsy. There's 2 cores of liver here that we see. And the little white areas in here, that represents steatosis or fat, which we see in individuals who have a drug or toxin injury. The blue here represents a portal region, but we look at the liver, there's no bridging fibrosis between portal region and portal region, no fibrosis between portal region and central vein. There's mild to moderate steatosis, no real significant scarring.
Now, the moderate steatosis that you notice, is that significant enough to move this individual to fatty liver disease?
No. Remember, the fatty liver disease is not associated with the drug or toxin. The fatty liver disease that we talked about before is a metabolic disease, and it's associated with obesity, diabetes, and chronic inflammation.
Okay, so the steatosis that's evident in this slide, is that something that's going to be a permanent condition in your opinion?
It's going to go away.
Okay. All right, let's move to the next slide, if we could. What are we looking at here?
So every organ of the body has on its exterior coat, on the outside, collagen. And so what we're looking at is collagen that's on the surface of the liver. And so this is normal collagen, capsules blue, normal collagen, blue is not bad. And then we see a few little lines of collagen coming in, but this is normal, and so pathologists who are experienced need to be able to look at the biopsy and determine whether the collagen that's present is normal collagen or abnormal collagen.
And in this particular slide, do you notice much in the way of steatosis?
In this slide, we see some steatosis here, little white areas.
And how would you categorize that as far as mild, moderate?
We're just looking at a small area, I would say mild.
Okay. All right, and let's move to the next slide that you reviewed. Or slides, I should say. What are we looking at here?
Here we're looking again at the trichrome stain. I'm biased to the trichrome stain because we're talking about collagen, and collagen is stained blue by this Masson trichrome stain. And so we're looking at a portal region. You can see a bile duct, you can see inflammation, and you see a little bit of collagen in here, so a 1. And then here, I think this is a longitudinal, partial longitudinal section through a portal triad.
I apologize for interrupting you. That pointer is going right over to their eyes when it reflects off the TV. Can we do it on the closer TV here?
Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I apologize.
And to the extent it's helpful, we can borrow ours.
So,
Okay. Or do you want a pointer stick instead? What's better for you, Dr. Rob?
no, this is
Okay. We're going to switch to this. We're too high tech for our own good.
Okay.
I'll take this back before you hurt anybody.
We're seeing a bit of a longitudinal cut through the portal triad. So it was coming out of both sides.
Well, it was reflecting off the TV and it was getting close to our jurors' eyes. So.
Sorry.
Don't want to blind the jurors.
No, that would not be good. Okay, and so in the slides that we've gone through, I think there are 4 total. Did you observe any evidence of bridging fibrosis?
No.
Okay. Would you disagree with a pathologist if they claim to see bridging fibrosis in these slides?
Yes,
And why is that?
because there's no bridging fibrosis.
Fair enough. In reviewing these slides, did you make a determination of where Ms. Strong would have been on the fibrosis scale?
I said 1.
Okay. Is it correct to say that determining where someone is on the fibrosis scale is not a hard science? I mean, it's a judgment call, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can reasonable minds differ between a 1 or a 2?
Yes.
Or a 2 or a 3?
Yes. With a continuum, yes.
Okay. Can reasonable minds differ on a 0 to a 4?
Yes.
Oh, even that much? Even that?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Can
Wow.
they differ?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I mean, there's a point where it's not a professional judgment anymore. It's just too far outside the evidence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And did you review the Balboa Navy Hospital liver biopsy report?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did the pathologist in that case make some findings regarding Ms. Strong's biopsy?
Yes.
Was there a finding regarding the fibrosis scale?
I think they didn't see any fibrosis.
Right. It was 0 to 1, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was there a finding of drug-induced liver injury?
Yes.
All right. Do you agree with those findings?
Yes.
Did that pathologist who initially took a look at Ms. Strong's biopsy slides, did they find any evidence of bridging fibrosis?
No.
Okay. All right, you can go ahead and sit back down if you'd like. And to the next slide. Based on your review, did you form any opinions as it relates to Ms. Strong's liver condition?
Yes.
And what are those opinions?
I thought that the findings were consistent with drug-induced liver injury. You need to exclude other diagnoses like viral hepatitis and autoimmune disease and genetic disorders, but after excluding those diagnoses, it's consistent with drug-induced liver injury or toxin-induced. I thought that there was minimal scarring, 1 out of 4, and I didn't see any evidence of permanent liver damage.
Okay, so moving on to the next slide, what would you say is Ms. Strong's long-term outlook?
Her liver function tests went back to normal. There was no fibrosis of significance on the liver biopsy, and all of her clinical symptoms resolved, and there was no evidence of chronic liver injury. So my outlook was prognosis is excellent.
Okay, and in your opinion, does she have an elevated risk for future liver injury because of her experience with real water and hydrazine?
Does she have a risk? Well, I think that she needs to tell any treating physician that she's had this type of reaction in the past, and then to be careful in terms of what drugs they prescribe to make sure that she doesn't have a liver injury again. And then the second thing is to make sure that she's not exposed to other toxins such as alcohol, and then to maintain a healthy diet, a healthy weight, and to exercise.
In your opinion, is she likely to have a relapse in the future due to her prior hydrazine exposure?
No.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide and talk about Ms. Diaz. Did you rely on any medical records as it relates to forming your opinions for Ms. Diaz?
Her hospital records, her follow-up laboratory and laboratory tests, as well as her form that she filled out regarding exposure to real water.
Okay.
And her liver biopsy and liver biopsy report.
Perfect, thank you. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Tell us what we're looking at here.
Can I get up again?
Your Honor, is he free to step
that's
down? Okay, thank you.
I won't hurt anybody.
Yeah, don't throw the stick at him.
So the little white areas we see here is steatosis, or fat that's in the hepatocytes, and the fat comes from injury from the toxin. We see portal triad, normal portal triad. We see a portal triad that is cut longitudinally. How do I know that? Because when I looked at it under the microscope, I still had the slides on. I looked at it again at home yesterday. I got here early this morning. But what you have is this undulating bile duct, hepatic artery, and portal vein. And this is not bridging fibrosis. This represents a longitudinally cut portal triad.
Okay. And do you see any evidence of a regenerative nodule on this slide?
I looked and I looked, but there's nothing in there that resembles a regenerative nodule.
What about fibrosis? Do you see fibrosis on this slide?
Yeah, I think, you see collagen, maybe a little bit here, but just one.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide. This one has been in front of the jury several times so far in this case, so I think we're all used to seeing it. Tell me what you see in this slide.
So this is normal collagen, and the way I know it is, if you look at it, it's very granular. So normal collagen is granular in appearance, whereas abnormal collagen, and it's part of scarring, has sort of a wispy look to it, stringy, not as ropey as this. And then I can see this bile duct here, and then this bile duct here, and then this bile duct here, and this bile duct here. And then we also see this vein that goes all the way through, right there. So this is a longitudinally cut portal triad.
Now, there's a section of white that runs through the middle of the blue. Do you see that? The white that runs through the blue?
Yes.
If that was a longitudinally cut portal track, shouldn't that white line continue on in perpetuity?
Undulation. Because the liver isn't set up like a nice city with rows set up. It's rounded, and so you would have an undulating portal triad.
Okay, I appreciate that. And as it relates to the opinions that you prepared for, yeah, you can sit back down. Thank you, doctor. For Ms. Diaz, do you remember how many reports you prepared?
One.
Okay. In that one report, did you state an opinion as to whether any fibrosis was present on her biopsy slides?
No.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I think you want to,
Yeah.
let me try that again. In the report, did you state an opinion as to whether there's fibrosis in the biopsy slides?
I believe I said one.
Okay. That opinion was that you believe it was a 1 on the fibrosis scale and there was no significant fibrosis present, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And as a part of your report, did you also attach some exhibits?
Yes.
Okay. Were those exhibits some of the slides that we've had up here today?
Yes.
All right. Was this one of the exhibits?
Yes.
Okay. And did that exhibit that you attached to your report have a comment that stated, note the appearance of bridging fibrosis?
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
So I took that from a textbook. It's called Oates and Goldblum, published in 2009, and it's the surgical pathology of the liver. And on page 1143 and 1144, there's a nice table, and it talks about pitfalls in the diagnosis of liver disease. And one of the pitfalls is that maybe less experienced pathologists may mistake a longitudinally cut portal triad and call it bridging fibrosis. So I said, note the appearance of bridging fibrosis, but indeed what I was pointing out is that this is not bridging fibrosis, but that this represents a longitudinally cut portal triad.
Okay. At any point did you change your opinion from saying there was no significant fibrosis to there's bridging fibrosis?
No.
Okay. All right, and before we move on, do you notice any evidence of steatosis on this slide?
Yes.
Okay. And again, that's the presence of fat in the liver, correct?
Yes.
All right. And how would you categorize the steatosis that's present? Is it mild, moderate, severe?
I think it was moderate.
Okay. Is that something you'd expect to resolve once the harmful toxin had been removed?
Yes.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and go on to the next slide, please. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at a large portal triad. So some portal triads are larger than others. So the pipe goes from small portal triads to medium-sized portal triads to a large portal triad. That's normal collagen around the portal vein.
Okay, so the blue in that slide, is that scarring or is that good?
No, that's
collagen?
normal collagen.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and move on to slide 26, please. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
All right, what is this?
This was the pathology report that was produced from the liver biopsy on Ms. Diaz.
Okay. And did you review this document informing your opinions?
I did.
Okay. Did the pathologist that originally took a look at this slide, did that individual find fibrosis?
No.
Okay. And is that represented somewhere on the document? It's the next to last line on the first paragraph.
No significant fibrosis is present.
Okay. Do you agree with that conclusion?
Yes.
Okay. And the report also notes regenerative nodules are seen. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
No.
Why not?
Your Honor.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, we can go back to the slides, please. All right. Okay, if you don't mind, Robin, would you actually go back one slide for me? One more. Thanks. In your review of the pathology slides, did you identify any regenerative nodules?
No.
Could you describe to the jury what a regenerative nodule would look like on a pathology slide?
It would have a rounded shape, and there would be either an obliterated central vein or no central vein whatsoever, and it wouldn't have the normal appearance of a, it has, in this particular case, because there was a toxin or drug-induced liver injury, the hepatocytes are not lined up normally, but they're not lined up in the fashion that you would see in a regenerative nodule. And it doesn't have, it's not circled by fibrosis. It doesn't have the histologic appearance that from experience, an experienced liver pathologist would say, yes, that's a regenerative nodule.
In your experience, is it difficult for you to identify regenerative nodules?
It should be pretty easy to identify regenerative nodules.
Okay. And in your review of these slides, you did not see those, correct?
I did not.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to slide 27, please, Robin. Based on your review, did you form any opinions as it relates to Ms. Diaz's liver injuries?
Because of the fatty change and the clinical picture and the inflammation that I saw, I would say that this is consistent with a drug-induced liver injury because other etiologies, other causes of liver injury were ruled out. I didn't see any significant scarring, and I didn't see any evidence of long-term liver damage.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. What is her long-term outlook?
Mrs. Diaz's liver tests came back normal a few months later, complete absence of abnormalities of liver function tests. She didn't have significant fibrosis on the biopsy, and she had a FiberSure test, which is these 6 chemicals, and that was normal, and her symptoms resolved, and there's no evidence of chronic liver injury. Her prognosis is excellent.
Okay. And based on her exposure to hydrazine, in your opinion, is she more likely than not to have a relapse of some type of acute injury to her liver in the future?
I don't believe that she will, no.
Okay. And have all of your opinions been stated to a reasonable degree of medical probability?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Robin, I'll go ahead and pass the witness.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Judge, I think I've probably got about 20, 25 minutes, so I know Dr. Robin has some kind of scheduling issue, so I can do it now, or we can go. I don't care either way.
Yeah, ready, get ready.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Dr. Robin. How are you today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good. I'm good. Much better than, well, I'm good. So now, if I'm correct, you only looked at the slides for 2 of the plaintiffs in this case, Diaz and Strong?
Yes,
And so there's 13 plaintiffs in the case, so you didn't look at the slides for anybody else.
that's true.
You didn't look at Mrs. Bourdonna's slide, right?
No,
Didn't look at Lisa King's slide.
no.
So you're just here to talk about Diaz and Strong, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Now, have you had a chance to look at Dr. Datnow's trial testimony from 2 days ago? Or maybe
Yes.
3? Okay. So his trial, I'm talking about trial testimony as opposed to deposition.
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. And have you also looked at Ms. Diaz's trial testimony?
I did not.
And how about Carolyn Strong's trial testimony?
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, liver biopsies, you don't do those unless there's a good reason to do it. Liver biopsies are not done unless there's a good reason to do the liver biopsy, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Painful operation,
Yes,
and it's kind of risky when you have a high INR
yes.
because people can bleed out.
That potential exists.
And it's a painful operation because there's no anesthetic, right?
Well, there's local anesthetic, but yes.
Okay. All right, so I think you agreed to this. Vanya Diaz had acute liver failure, right?
Yes,
Okay. And that was related to her consumption of water with hydrazine in it, right?
yes.
Okay. So would you agree that what we have here in the Diaz case are two pathological questions? One, whether or not the slides show regenerative nodules. That's big question number one. And two, whether or not there's bridging fibrosis. Those are the two big questions.
Yes.
Okay. For Diaz. Okay. Because if the slides show regenerative nodules and bridging fibrosis, Diaz, more likely than not, has cirrhosis, correct?
I'm sorry, was that a double negative?
If the slides show bridging fibrosis for Diaz and regenerative nodules for Diaz, she has cirrhosis, correct?
Well, not necessarily, but yes. Individuals who have bridging fibrosis and regenerative nodules have cirrhosis, but there are early stages where you might see regenerative nodules and what we would call bridging fibrosis.
And cirrhosis is the highest stage of liver scarring, correct?
Yes.
Irreversible, can't be fixed.
Well,
You think cirrhosis can be fixed?
no, I think, though, that it can be modified and treated, and patients can have sustained liver function even with early cirrhosis.
Okay, and by that you mean there's some sort of way to lessen the impact. You can't cure the cirrhosis, right?
No.
Right? It's there. The permanent scarring is there
Yes.
forever.
Yes.
All right. Now, let's take a look at, Shane, let's skip over the grading and let's go straight to the slide, please. Which would be 288-1. Okay. So it's your opinion that there are no regenerative nodules in this slide for Diaz or any other slides, right?
Yes.
Okay. But the treating pathologist here in Las Vegas, he said there were regenerative nodules, right?
It's in his report.
And he said that in December 2020, before we even knew about a potential real water case, right?
Yes.
And Dr. Datno also said that there's regenerative nodules, right?
He said that, yes.
Okay, and you've said before that he's a qualified pathologist, right?
He's a qualified cancer pathologist, but he's not a specialist in liver pathology.
Okay, well, he's not someone you would call a rookie pathologist, right?
Well, he's not a rookie pathologist when it comes to cancer pathology. I will say that.
Okay, and he's been doing this for probably longer than you, right?
No,
Close?
close.
Okay. And he's a colleague of yours, even though you walk by his house every day on your exercise routine?
He used to. Doesn't walk by my house anymore.
You walk by his house?
No.
He doesn't walk by your house, not because of this, right?
No.
He just doesn't walk as much, right? Okay. So we have two different pathologists, Dr. Datnow and the Las Vegas pathologist for Aurora. I guess it was Aurora Pathology. That was the name of the company.
That is correct, yes.
So the Aurora independent pathologist and Dr. Datnow, they both say regenerative nodules, right?
You know, it's interesting. He says it in his histologic
I'm
description.
not asking you to disagree with him. I'm asking you what he says. He says regenerative nodules are seen. That's what the Las Vegas pathologist said, right? Right?
I don't know if he said it. It's in his report.
Okay, fair.
And
fair.
you're saying that he said it.
Okay,
I
I'm
haven't
sorry.
heard
Let me
him
rephrase
say
it.
it. Yeah.
The report states, quote, regenerative nodules are seen, unquote, correct?
Yes.
And he doesn't say nodule, he says nodules, right? He says nodules.
No, the report says
The
nodules.
report says nodules. Okay, great. And that means there's more than one that he's seen, correct?
That would be plural, yes.
Okay. And this is just a little cut of the liver. If you see one nodule in this little cut, there's going to be tens of thousands of nodules throughout the whole liver, if there is indeed a regenerative nodule.
Yes, that's highly probable, yes.
Okay, and we've talked a little bit about bridging fibrosis. That's the scarring growing between the ports, right?
Well, it could either be between portal region and portal region or portal region and central vein.
Okay, and you will agree that in this outbreak, you have actually seen slides of people that drank real water and they got bridging fibrosis, correct? I'm not talking about Diaz, I'm talking about other people. You have seen slides that showed that they got bridging fibrosis.
One.
Okay. Now, I think you would agree with me that many, if not most, pathologists would look at these slides and say there's bridging fibrosis.
No, not trained liver pathologists.
Well, didn't you tell me at your deposition that, quote, many pathologists would look at this slide and say that there's bridging fibrosis?
I don't know if I said many, but I think the reason why it's pointed out in Oates and Goldblum's book is so that general pathologists reading the pitfalls on page 1143 and 1144 won't fall into the trap of calling a longitudinal cut through a portal triad as bridging fibrosis.
Okay, a longitudinal cut. You're saying that there was a longitudinal cut on this slide, right?
Yes.
And that means a cutting error. There was a mistake made when they prepared the slide. That's what you're telling the jury, right?
No, it's not a mistake. It's by
I'm not
chance.
suggesting it's intentional, but there was an error, a cutting error made on this slide. That's your opinion.
That is not my opinion.
Okay, let me try it one more time. When you prepare slides, you're not supposed to do longitudinal cuts, right?
The whole liver needle core is a longitudinal cut through the liver biopsy.
When the pathologist at Aurora prepared this slide, his objective was to not prepare a slide with a longitudinal cut, correct?
Wrong.
He was intending to do a longitudinal cut on this.
No, that's by chance and chance alone, because if you look at the way, I understand that Dr. Datnow showed you a paraffin block. In the paraffin block, the liver core sits like this. When the histotechnologist takes a section, this is the way the section looks. That's why it's long, has a long axis and a short axis. So this is not a mistake. This is just one of the normal ways in which you will see a portal triad in a liver needle biopsy correctly repaired.
And am I not correct that it's the standard procedure in almost every path lab in the United States to examine the slides and make sure there's not a longitudinal cut that can somehow distort the slide?
That's wrong. That's
You
crazy.
think that's wrong?
That's wrong.
Okay, so you think this was just an accidental error that Aurora made, and that is what's caused people to misread the slide?
If you want me to respond to that?
Well, the answer is yes. I think it was an accidental
No,
error, Mr.
no,
Camp, or
no.
no, it wasn't an accidental error.
No.
It was an intentional error?
No, it is not an intentional error. The error is when a pathologist who's not trained in liver pathology looks at a longitudinal section and says that this represents bridging fibrosis, when indeed, normally you will find longitudinal sections through a longitudinally cut liver needle core biopsy.
So if the pathologist knows that there's a longitudinal section, he should do a new cut, correct?
No, not true.
Not true.
Not true.
Okay, unless you had a trichrome slide without an error, without a longitudinal cut, how are you going to see bridging fibrosis?
Well, bridging fibrosis is observed when you look at a liver that's cut on edge. But I think everyone who looked at this liver needle core biopsy sees that there's a long portion and a wide portion. All liver needle core biopsies are cut longwise.
There is a long portion, that is the white space that goes underneath the line.
No,
correct?
that's the horizontal.
When you were up there with counsel, you said that this was the error, that this was the horizontal cut.
No, what I said was, if you back up one slide, because maybe you could learn something.
Oh, doctor, come on. Really? Really, doctor?
Well, really, if you're saying
Come on.
that this is wrong.
No,
Show
I'm
it the other
saying you
slide.
just told counsel that the reason we can't see the complete cut, the complete line extending this, is there's some kind of undulation. Isn't that what you told counsel?
That's the normal appearance of the liver. It undulates in terms of these things.
So you do not see this cutting error in the entire slide. Is that correct?
I take umbrage to the fact that you're calling it a cutting error. It's not a cutting error. It's a misinterpretation by pathologists that's brought to the attention of pathologists that they shouldn't fall for this pitfall. This is the normal way in which the liver is cut. There was nothing wrong with this liver biopsy.
Okay, you could have cut it again, could you not? It could have been recut. Right?
Well, yes.
And you could have recut it. I think you just told the jury you still have the slide. You could have recut it yourself, right?
No, that's incorrect. I had the slides. The slides come from a paraffin block. For me to recut it, I would have needed to have the paraffin block. Aurora Hospital would have had to give me the paraffin tissue for me to cut an additional section.
Okay, first of all, it's not a hospital, it's Aurora Pathology Lab, correct? It's not a hospital. Okay, but you concede that it could have been recut, and if it was recut, we wouldn't be arguing about whether this was a mistake or not, right? If it was recut, there would be no reason to argue about it. So, doctor, if we had a slide from Bonnar Diaz that did not have the cutting error, okay?
It's not a cutting error.
Okay, whatever you want to call it, longitudinal section, okay, can we go with that? If we had a slide without what you call a longitudinal section, we wouldn't be having this debate, would we?
Every section of the liver is a longitudinal section. What we're talking about here is a longitudinal section of the portal triad. There's a difference between a longitudinal section of the slide and a longitudinal section of a portal region.
Okay, and you've attributed what we're seeing to a longitudinal section, what I'm calling a cutting error, right?
No, the liver is cut longitudinally, but astute pathologists will notice that there are bile ducts and arteries and veins running in this blue area, and that this represents a longitudinal cut portal triad. Nothing wrong with the way in which the tissue was processed. It's normal processing.
Okay. And by astute pathologist, you're not including Dr. Datnow as being astute.
That's your statement.
You're telling the jury that Dr. Datnow made a mistake here, right?
Yes, I am. He didn't see that the first time in his report. It's interesting that he looked at it again and decided that it was indeed a bridging fibrosis in his testimony versus in his report. So that means that he must have broken into my house and looked at the slides again.
Broken into your house and looked at the slides again? He had copies of your blow-ups, doctor. You know that. He didn't have to break into your house and look at the slides.
Yeah, well, I looked at the slide, and I can tell
Okay,
you
so-
that this is not bridging fibrosis.
So Dr. Datnow is not a student. He's incompetent. He's a burglar. That's what you're saying. He's a burglar. He broke into your house. These are pretty wild accusations, right, doctor?
No, I didn't say that. I was saying that if he looked at it again, that's how he would have had to do it.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
Right, that's it.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the testimony you gave, and I think I wrote this down right. Quote, the liver's ability to regenerate, unquote. Quote, the liver has incredible capacity to repair itself, unquote. Quote, the liver is incredible regenerative capacity, unquote. Did you say all that to the jury?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to call this the magic liver theory, okay? You pour rocket fuel on someone's liver, magically the liver can regenerate itself. So when I'm talking about the magic liver theory, that's what I'm referring to. Okay, doctor, would I be correct that there is no scientific literature studying people that have consumed hydrazine that suggests that the liver can repair itself? None.
Yes.
Okay, and would I be correct that actually there is scientific literature that suggests that when people are exposed to hydrazine, even for one day or a small amount, not only does the liver not repair itself, but those people die? Would I be correct?
There are a couple case reports of that, yes.
Okay, and let's talk about those. You've taken a look at, let's start with the Benjamin article, please, Shane. It's 106. So here is the lead author's name, Benjamin, right, doctor?
Give me a second to put my glasses
Sure.
on.
Sure, no problem. Would you like a hard copy of the article? Would that help? So, doctor, you've looked just before,
Yes.
and this is the 21-year-old airman working on some sort of F-16 who had 1 minute exposure to hydrazine, right?
This is elevated CPK literature. Okay, yeah, I see that.
Okay, so he's exposed for 1 minute to hydrazine. He doesn't even drink it like these people did. He just inhales it, right?
That's what it says, yes.
Okay, and have you looked at his liver function tests that are reported in this article?
Probably I did, but I'm sure you'd like to show them to me.
Okay, Shane, let's pop those up, please. Okay, so ALT, 123, 145, 134, 115, and then 34, it almost goes back to normal on day 21. So he has elevated ALTs, right?
Yes.
But Ms. Diaz she had elevated ALTs of 2,000, right?
Yes.
And let's take a look at this poor airman's ASTs. 321, 378, 204, 152, and 19. Correct?
Yes.
All above normal.
Yes.
But Ms. Diaz had ASTs in the thousands, correct?
Yes.
So, would you agree with me that Ms. Diaz had a more serious injury than this airman?
It appears that way, yes.
Okay.
She had a more severe acute injury, yes.
Okay, fair. And the same is true of Carolyn Strong. She had higher ALTs and ASTs than this too, right?
Yes.
And the same answer would apply. Her exposure to the toxicity was greater than the airman's, right?
Well, I don't know if we could say that, but I don't know if that's the case.
Okay. Well, let's look at the bottom of page 31 that has the findings from the liver biopsy for this airman who died. Shane, can you, I think it's the page before, Shane. Right here. Oh, I'm sorry, that's. No, I've got it. I've got it. It's on the bottom of page 31, Shane. Okay, back. Hey, Shane, are you on exhibit 99? No. Okay. Why don't we go on exhibit 99? Okay. Doctor, let's take a look at the first full paragraph after the introduction. Okay. The toxic effects of hydrazine appear either after local application or after inhalation or ingestion. You agree with that statement?
Yes.
Okay. And then in laboratory animals, because they have tested hydrazine on laboratory animals, dogs, rats, guinea pigs. Hydrazine causes anorexia, loss of weight, tremor, weakness, inflammation, fatty degeneration of the liver, interstitial nephritis. That's what the literature reports, right?
Yes. Is that in animals?
Laboratory animal inhalation, correct?
Yeah.
And Ms. Diaz and Ms. Strong had most of these symptoms: loss of weight, tremors, weaknesses, inflammation, fatty degeneration of the liver. They had all these symptoms, right?
Yes. But the good news is they're not animals.
Oh, okay. And then let's flip over, Shane, to the bottom of the page. So are you suggesting to me that there's something about human beings that make them more resistant to hydrazine than animals?
I am.
Oh, so why is it the Air Force studied dogs and mice and rats and guinea pigs in their efforts to determine what a toxic dose was for humans?
Well, lots of studies are done on animals. Sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they're not. But animals metabolize these drugs differently. And therefore, just because you see a toxic effect in an animal doesn't mean that you're going to see a toxic effect in a human.
You're not a toxicologist, right?
I'm
not a board-certified toxicologist, are you?
I'm not a board-certified toxicologist, but I do toxicology studies for clinical research organizations and for drug companies.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And there was a toxicologist who testified in this case named Dr. Cosnet. Did you know that?
Yes,
You looked at his deposition,
yes.
and you would agree with me that he is much more qualified toxicologist than you are, correct?
So he is a clinical toxicologist, and I hold myself out as a pathologic toxicologist, looking at the injuries of drugs under the microscope.
So you think that Dr. Cosnet is not qualified as well as Dr. Dabney?
I'm
Is
saying
what you're
that
telling me?
he's qualified in terms of looking at the data, but he's not qualified in terms of looking under the microscope. And he also has cherry-picked the literature to demonstrate that animals who are exposed have this type of reaction. What you really need to do is to look at humans that are exposed, and that's predicated on there's a different way in which humans metabolize drugs and toxins than animals.
Well, first of all, you read Dr. Kosnick's report, and you did not file a rebuttal report to it. You didn't rebut one single statement he made, did you?
I wasn't asked to.
So the answer to my question is, yes, you are right, Mr. Kemp. I did not file a rebuttal report. That's easy, right?
That is true.
Okay. Now, let's go to the bottom of page 31, the pathological findings on the Sotonomy study. So we have severe tubular necrosis, interstitial hemorrhages, inflammation, same things we saw with Diaz, correct?
You didn't have she didn't have tubular, she didn't have a kidney biopsy.
Okay,
This is a kidney
let-
biopsy result.
Oh, I'm sorry, doctor. Let's go to the next page, Shane. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, you ready? Can you see that? Okay, the liver seemed normal, so they thought it was normal, right?
Yes.
And this guy died. This is the 59-year-old machinist. He died, right?
You know, do we have the autopsy findings?
Are you questioning that he died?
No, I'm questioning what did he die from?
Shane, let's go back to page 1 and let him read the abstract.
So, as a trained anatomic pathologist,
Okay,
it
he
says
died, right? He died.
No, but it says that he died of pneumonia, severe tubular necrosis, that's kidney injury, and that he only had mild hepatocellular damage. So the liver was only mildly injured. He died from his pneumonia and he died from his renal failure.
So this poor person had mild liver damage after being exposed to hydrazine, and he still died, correct?
Yes, of other causes.
Okay, now let's take a look back to the liver section of the case report, which again, Shane, is on page 3. All right. So, small focal liver cell necrosis. You saw that in the Diaz slides, right?
Yes.
You saw that in the strong slides.
Yes.
Okay. Granular cell degeneration. You saw that in the Diaz slides, maybe not so much in the strong slides, right?
Yes.
Okay. And lymphocytes, you saw those in both slides?
Yes.
Okay. So same liver damage in strong and Diaz that we have in this person that died, correct?
Yes, but not of their liver damage.
Okay. So we've gone through 2 scientific articles where we had the 21-year-old Air Force person and the 59-year-old machinist, both exposed, one day, one a couple weeks, to small quantities of hydrazine, and both of those died, right? One died.
According to those articles, yes. You only have 2 articles.
Well, you don't have any. You don't have any article where someone pours hydrazine on their liver and they have a full recovery because of the magic liver. You don't have one single article you can rely on, correct?
No, what I have is...
So the answer is yes, Mr. Kemp. I do not have any articles, and I will let you continue. There are no articles that support your position, correct?
Objection.
So, doctor, the question, and I'll let you explain anything you want. The question is, there are no articles on human beings where we poured hydrazine on their liver that shows that the liver is magically repairing itself, correct?
No, not on hydrazine. That is correct.
Okay. And I told you I'd be fair. What did you want to say?
I wanted to say that a number of individuals have drug-induced or liver injury due to either drugs or to toxins, and the majority of those people get better. And then we know that both Mrs. Diaz and Mrs. Strong, their laboratory studies were normal 6 months after they had their liver biopsies, so that they've gotten better. The two cases that he shows that made it to the literature, one was from 1909, I believe.
No, 1909? You think they had F-16 fighters in 1909, Doctor?
Well, there was an initial article that you had from 1909, but
A different article that we haven't even talked about today.
well, I hope we don't talk about it, but okay.
Okay. So you are relying on the fact that the ALTs and ASTs went back to normal to prove that these plaintiffs have a magic liver?
And also the FiberSure was normal, and clinically they're normal, yes.
Okay, so let me ask a key question here. Isn't it true that people with cirrhosis can have absolutely normal ALT and AST? Is that not true? Yes or no?
That is true.
Thank you. So, the fact that they have normal liver results, that does not preclude the possibility that they have permanent liver damage, correct?
That's why you do the FiberSure and the FibroScans. And so they didn't show any evidence of cirrhosis.
Well, first of all, only one of the two patients had FibroScan, correct?
Yes.
And second of all, would I be correct that FibroScan's kind of relatively new and controversial? I mean, why would you ever do a liver biopsy if you could get all these answers from a FibroScan? Liver biopsy is the gold standard, right?
Right. So the FibroScan only tells you if the liver is fibrotic and whether it has increased tensile strength. So it tells you that it has increased collagen. But the FibroScan doesn't tell you what the etiology is, what the cause of the liver damage. It doesn't necessarily tell you what the prognosis is, and it doesn't help you in terms of the therapeutic indications for that particular patient.
And am I not right that you would never, ever submit someone to a liver transplant based solely on a FibroScan? Never do that, right?
No.
Because it's not a reliable instrument as a liver biopsy. So it's not as reliable, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's go to, see, doctor, you got me all worked up and I'm losing my spot. Okay, let's take a look at Exhibit 4031, the Navy pathologist report of Strong. So this is what they found on December 7th when they did the liver biopsy on Carolyn Strong, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that was done approximately 41 days, or I think it was 48 days after she ingested the real water on October 21st, right?
Yes.
So she still has this injury 7 weeks later, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the biopsy report says portal inflammatory infiltrates, correct?
Yes.
And you agree with that, you saw that.
Yes.
And cholestasis, you saw that?
Yes.
Okay, and again, those two things, that poor airman that died, the 21-year-old, he had both of those too, right?
Yes.
Okay, next, Jane. And we've talked a lot about steatosis. Okay, see now, Mr. Parker's correcting me, I'm in trouble. So steatosis, right?
Yes.
And that's, when you mentioned the 1905 article, that's what they found. They found that hydrogen causes steatosis, right?
Yes.
And all these plaintiffs had steatosis? Or the two you've looked at?
The two that I looked at, yes.
Okay. Now, you talked about fatty liver being caused by obesity and diabetes, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And Ms. Diaz and Ms. Strong, they aren't obese. Neither one of them are they?
No.
And neither one of them has diabetes, right?
No.
So you're not suggesting to the jury that their fatty liver was caused by obesity or diabetes, correct?
I would never do that.
Okay. Now, the past slide says that this was...
Could we go back to that, though?
Go back to what?
To the last...
I think I just brought it up for even better. Go ahead. Do you like this one? It has the same thing.
No, I like the microscopic description.
Okay, let's go back. I'm fair, doctor. Let's speed things up.
Yeah, so it says stage 0 to 1 over 4 fibrosis.
Okay, and 0 is normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 is above 4.
Hmm?
1 is the grade above, 0, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Yes.
And this is Miss Strong, right? So you've already said, I think, that if it's a 1, maybe that's really a 2. You wouldn't argue with that. If it's a 2, it could be a 3. That's kind of what you said?
I didn't say that. I said I called it a 1.
Okay.
The question to me was, is it possible for two competent pathologists to disagree in terms of a 1 and a 2? My answer was yes. But my answer is 1, just like the Navy pathologist.
Well, actually, he doesn't even say 1. He says 0 to 1, right? Right?
Yes.
So you're rating it worse than him. Because you're 1 or 1 to 2. I can't remember what you are.
Plus minus, yeah.
Okay. All right. Can we go to the next one, Shane? Is that everything you want to say, doctor? Okay. Portal inflammatory infiltrates. You've already said that you saw this too, right?
Yes.
Okay. And again, that was caused by the drug-induced liver injury.
Yes.
By the way, you said that people that were exposed to hydrazine, you would advise that they avoid certain drugs. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, and one of those drugs is Tylenol. You'd advise them to avoid Tylenol, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because their liver has already been compromised, you don't even want them to take Tylenol because that could potentially do further damage. Right?
No, you're putting words in my mouth. I don't want them to take Tylenol, not because of the fact that their liver is damaged. I wouldn't want them to take any drug that's known to have liver toxicity. And so therefore, I would say not to take drugs that are known to be liver toxin. Whereas this drug that you're talking about, Tylenol, that causes damage when it's in large doses, not in small doses.
Well, large doses like 10 to 12 pills at a time. That's a large dose, right? That's what you mean by large dose. Right. So you don't want them to take Tylenol. And would I be also correct that out of the 8 to 10 most common antibiotics, there'd be at least 2 or 3 of those that you don't want them to take?
I would be, yeah.
Nitrofurantoin, for example, you don't want them on nitrofurantoin?
Correct.
And again, so these people, they've got to understand these limitations and proceed accordingly, right?
Right, but I think all patients have their own best interests at heart and that they would tell their treating physician that they had this exposure in the past.
Okay. Okay, let's go to slide 4032, the portal edema. Oh, okay, this is good. So you saw this too, the paracellular fibrosis?
Yes.
Okay. And what that means is next to the port, it starts developing fibrosis.
It means that we had the portal triad, and then blood runs from the portal triad through these sinusoids. In that zone 3, closest to the central vein, some collagen is laid down, and that's called perisinusoidal collagen or fibrosis. It's reversible, and you can see it on the biopsy.
Well, maybe it's reversible, but am I correct that that in and of itself merits a grade 2 on the rating scale?
No, that's incorrect.
Let's have the rating scale, Shane, please. There's the rating scale, and I see stage 2 and I see periportal fibrosis. Where am I wrong?
You're wrong because this is around the central vein, not around the portal area. You have your anatomy messed up.
So you did not see periportal fibrosis. You did not see fibrosis around.
I saw it around the central vein in
Okay.
zone 3 where you have the injury. And
Okay.
then the liver has the capacity to make an enzyme collagenase and get rid of that collagen. But there are also other causes of having perisinusoidal fibrosis besides hydrazine.
Okay, let's take the first part of your statement. The liver has the capacity to cure itself. Again, no scientific studies whatsoever support that proposition with regards to hydrazine poisoning, right?
That's correct.
Okay, let's take a look at the portal edema. Shane? So this is what the pathologist found in San Diego on Strong, portal edema and bile duct injury. You saw both of those?
Well, he said without bile ductular reaction. I saw some.
I said portal edema and bile duct injury without bile ductular reaction. There's still bile duct injury, right?
Yes, myoportal edema and bile duct injury, yes.
And you agree that Strong had that?
Yes.
Okay, and then and again, all that's consistent with hydrazine toxicity.
It's observed with hydrazine toxicity, yes.
Okay, and I think we've already talked about steatosis. Go to the next one anyway, Shane. So we just don't have steatosis, we have ballooning, right, doctor?
Well, ballooning degeneration is different than steatosis.
I know that. Okay, but did you also observe ballooning?
I did, yes.
And the next, and it says, okay, this is going to be tough. Help me, doctor.
I'm reticent to help you, but apoptotic.
Don't be mean, okay? Okay. Dying hepatocytes, right?
Yes,
Okay, and you saw that too, right?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
And again, that's consistent with hydrazine toxicity.
You see it in hydrazine, yes.
Okay. So let's go to the diagnosis, please, and I'm going to try to wrap up here. Okay, so here's their clinical diagnosis. Again, this is at the Navy pathology lab. They didn't know anything about hydrazine. Didn't know anything about hydrazine. And they say that it's caused by DILI, drug-induced liver injury, right?
They said it was the top of their differential diagnosis, and I would agree with that.
Okay, fair. Okay, so let's see the bottom line here, and then perhaps we can end. Okay. Next one, Shane. Next. Okay, so these are the key points. So, majority, many, whatever term you want to use, a lot of pathologists are going to say that Diaz has bridging fibrosis, right?
Incorrect. There were at least 3 pathologists that looked at the biopsy. The treating pathologists at Aurora, Dr. Robin, and Dr. Datnow. A majority.
You're Dr. Robin. Okay.
I know. A majority would be 2 out of 3.
So
If
you
Dr.
think-
Robin and the pathologists at Aurora both say that there was no bridging fibrosis, that would be the majority.
Okay, so you think the jury should go with the majority rules out of the 2 out of 3 here?
No, I think the jury should go with the facts.
Okay, well, let's play this little 2 out of 3 game. So the Aurora guy said regenerative nodules, right?
He did say that.
Dr. Dabnow said that, right?
Yes.
And what did Dr. Robin say?
No regenerative nodules.
So 2 out of 3, we should go with regenerative nodules, right?
Well, let's go back to Dr.
Right?
Datnow's.
Under that reasoning, we should say, we should make the determination that Vina Diaz has regenerative nodules. Under your own reasoning, right?
I guess so.
Okay. And if she has regenerative nodules, she has permanent liver scarring, cirrhosis, right?
No, she needs bridging fibrosis to have permanent liver injury.
Okay, and bridging fibrosis, we're back to what I call the cutting error, right?
You called it cutting error. I called it the normal cut of the liver.
Well, you actually call it the transitional section or some fancy. But anyway,
I called it longitudinal.
okay, and I think we've covered point 3. You agree that if she has both bridging fibrosis, regenerative nodules, she's got cirrhosis, permanent liver injury, right?
Well, she at least she's at 3 out of 4, possibly 4, if indeed that was the case.
Okay, next one, Shane. And cirrhosis, assuming she has cirrhosis, that doesn't get better, okay? That's not repaired by the magic liver, right?
No.
And she can have cirrhosis and have normal ALT and AST, right?
Yes.
Last one, Shane. Well, I think we've covered that. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Doctor, did Ms. Diaz's pathology report find bridging fibrosis?
No.
Okay. In Dr. Datnow's report, did he find that Ms. Diaz had bridging fibrosis?
No.
In Dr. Datnow's deposition, did he find that Ms. Diaz had bridging fibrosis?
No.
Okay. But at testimony at trial, he testified that she did have bridging fibrosis, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in Dr. Datnow's report regarding Ms. Diaz, did he find that she had regenerative nodules?
No.
In his deposition, did he say that Ms. Diaz had regenerative nodules?
No.
Okay. In your review of Ms. Strong's and Ms. Diaz's pathology reports and their biopsy slides, did you find any evidence of cirrhosis?
No.
Did either of the pathologists that were the treating pathologists, not retained experts in this case, but did either of them find that either of these plaintiffs, Ms. Strong or Ms. Diaz, had cirrhosis?
No.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. No more questions.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You do have some jury questions. Okay, before we break for lunch, I know Dr. some member of the jury has some questions for you. Yeah, this morning. Nebraska one too. All right, here's the first question, Doctor, from juror number 5, Ms. Lefevre. Quote, if collagen shows up blue in the liver biopsy, how can you differentiate that from fibrosis since both are blue?
Good question. So there are actually 4 types of collagen 1, 2, 3, and 4. And collagen 1 and 3 are normal in the portal triad. And so when you look at a portal triad under the microscope and that trichrome stain that's special for collagen, when you see the collagen fibers, the blue fibers, they're kind of ropey and coarse. Whereas when you see really fine, thin, sort of like a spider web type collagen under the microscope, that's more in keeping with fibrosis or something pathologic. So it's the texture and the way in which it looks under the microscope.
All right. We have another question from juror number 2. And is that Anna, man? Yes, okay, I got that right. Thank you, ma'am. Question, quote, is it possible for a small portion of the liver to be damaged, causing the enzymes to be off, and when a biopsy is to be done, it not show up in the biopsy?
Yeah. An excellent question. So remember, you're only looking at 1/50,000th of the whole liver. So if it's a focal lesion that's caused the problem, meaning that just there's a small area of injury that maybe is related to obstruction from a stone or a tumor, then you could potentially miss the area of pathology. There are some telltale signs like dilatation of blood vessels and sinusoids, but generally speaking, individuals with acute liver injury and with acute liver failure, the whole liver is involved. So the needle biopsy representing 1/50,000th of the whole liver tells the story.
Okay, thank you, doctor. We have another question, and that's from juror number 3, Ms. Rivera. Quote, for older people, is age a good factor to determine liver regeneration, or do older patients have a hard time healing?
Again, a very good question. As you get older, healing becomes a little bit more difficult. So when you're of the greater generation, sometimes you don't heal as well or fast as people who are younger, and the same thing is true of the liver. So age does have an effect.
Okay. We have another question from juror number 4, Mr. Dixon. Quote, from your professional opinion, how much experience would you need to be considered a liver expert?
Good question. I think seeing liver biopsies every day and reading the literature about liver disease and being interested in what causes liver disease, like what are the initiating factors, drugs, toxins, the environment, workplace, etc. So it's the experience of looking at liver biopsies, and I probably would look at 2 to 5 liver biopsies every day for 25 years, maybe 30 years. So I think it's experience as well as following the literature and being experienced in terms of looking at the liver. You have to make sure that you don't fall into picking up on one of the pitfalls as we discussed ad nauseum today.
And we do have a follow-up question from Mr. Dixon. Quote, from your knowledge, a liver specialist would be able to read the trichome stain 4x slide more efficiently than a non-liver pathologist?
And the answer there is yes.
All right, and lastly, we have a question from juror number 9, Ms. Garcia. Quote, is a fatty liver, or can a fatty liver be a genetic or hereditary condition?
Hereditary in terms of metabolic syndrome is hereditary, so that yes, individuals who have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, you can say that that was genetic or inherited. It could also be acquired. But the liver has limited ways in which to react to injury. So I'm sure that there are pediatric illnesses where there is steatosis or fatty change that is genetic, and it's due to a metabolic disorder.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up by counsel?
None, Your Honor. Judge, I had one question.
Yes, sir.
So, doctor, if the slide is 1/50,000th of the whole liver, if you see a regenerative nodule in the slide, does that mean there's really 50,000 of them in the liver?
The potential exists, yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you, doctor. You may step down.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for lunch. And I'm going to go ahead and read the recess admonishment. You're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report of a commentary on the trial by any persons connected with this case, by any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio. Remember the social media prohibition. And last but not least, do not form or express any opinion on any subject matter connected with this trial until the cause is finally submitted to you. And we'll break for lunch and come back at 2.
2, Your Honor. All rise to the report to the jury. Jury is clear, please be seated.
Off the record, Your Honor.
Yes, we can walk away.